Hi everyone. The Samsung Galaxy A21s is an entry-level smartphone with all the basics you could want and a decent all-around camera for the price. There's an HD Plus LCD screen, a huge 5000 mAh battery, 4 cameras, fingerprint scanner, and even NFC and FM radio, all starting at 170 euros. So what else does Samsung's entry-level get you in 2020? I'm Ricky for GSM Marina, and this is our review of the Samsung Galaxy A21s. Just because a phone is cheap doesn't mean it has to look like it. The Galaxy A21s is built with a plastic frame and backside, and Samsung knows how to make plastic look nice. The bezels around the screen are decently thin, and there's a small-sized punch hole camera in the upper corner. All in all, a sleek-looking phone. There's a headphone jack at the bottom of the phone next to the USB-C port and loudspeaker. The SIM tray is on the left side and it has room for 2 nano SIM cards and a micro SD card. Around back, there's the quad camera setup and the fingerprint scanner. Let's take a closer look at this screen. It's a TFT LCD screen with 720p resolution and a tall 20:9 aspect ratio. At 270 pixels per inch, it isn't the sharpest screen around, but that's well expected in this price range. We tested 491 nits of max brightness, which is about average, but we've seen much dimmer. There's a generously sized 5000 mAh battery here, which resulted in exceptional battery life. We tested 119 hours of endurance overall, with almost 40 hours of talk time and between 17 and 18 hours of video and web browsing. With the included 15-watt fast charger, you get a 26% charge in half an hour. Charging is a bit slow, but the endurance numbers certainly make up for that. The loudspeaker scored average in our test, and in our experience, it sounds quiet and barely loud. The phone is powered by a Samsung Exynos 850 chipset and paired with 3, 4, or 6 GB of RAM and up to 64 GB of storage. Its performance scores were not impressive despite being an octa-core chip. Playing games isn't ideal on the A21s, but it is possible. Everyday performance is okay, but it does begin to lag and stutter a bit as you load more apps and content. Honestly, we expected better, even for a budget phone. The phone comes loaded with Samsung's One UI 2.1, and we have to say that Samsung's been able to consistently match the look and feel of its UI across devices. The interface is straightforward, customizable, and well organized. Of course, being a budget phone, there's no edge panel or always-on display, but the phone supports Android 10 gestures and universal dark mode is the standard. Setting up a fingerprint is done with a couple of swipes, and it works quickly, consistently, and reliably. This quad camera setup is impressive for a budget range phone. There are 4 main cameras with a primary 48 megapixel camera, an 8 megapixel ultra-wide, 2 megapixel macro, and 2 megapixel depth sensor. The camera app is quite standard for Samsung, and the only thing we've noticed that's missing is a proper night mode. Daylight shots from the main camera look good. Although there isn't much detail, everything else is in order. Low noise with nice sharpness and accurate colors. Dynamic range is quite good as well, thanks to auto HDR. In the ultra-wide shots, there's still enough detail with great colors. Dynamic range isn't as good as on the main camera, but it's still about average. Honestly, we've seen much worse from even more expensive phones, so we're happy with this ultra-wide camera so far. The 2 megapixel macro camera has a fixed focus at around 4 centimeters. As long as you manage to get the distance just right, shots are detailed enough with accurate colors. Contrast could be a little better though. The 2 megapixel depth camera helps with portrait photos, and they're quite good. There's plenty of detail and great contrast. Subject separation works very well for its class, and the artificial blur looks nice as well. Low-lit photos shot with the main camera look great, with enough detail and nice saturation. As it gets darker though, noise reduction gets more aggressive and details get smeared. All in all, the pictures are still usable for social apps. Remember, there's no proper night mode for the Galaxy A21s. As for the ultra-wide camera, in low light, details are mostly gone, and it gets worse with less light, so low light photos with the ultra-wide aren't really usable. The punch-hole selfie camera has a 13 megapixel sensor, which will result in either 13 megapixel wide shots or 8 megapixel crops. Selfies look average and don't have much detail. Colors look washed out and it's missing some contrast. Portrait selfies are okay. Subject separation isn't stellar, but to be honest, it could have been worse. The Galaxy A21s shoots 1080p video at 30 frames per second, and video looks outstanding. There's a lot of detail and great sharpness. Colors are accurate and dynamic range looks natural. Contrast is also very good. The ultra-wide camera's video is sharp with colors true to life, but dynamic range isn't as good on this camera. The Samsung Galaxy A21s is a well-equipped entry-level smartphone, but the fact is that there are so many other smartphones in this sub €200 price range. Interestingly enough, the Samsung Galaxy A20 from last year has an AMOLED screen and a faster processor for the same price. Even though it doesn't have the macro or depth cameras from the new A21s, it's a trade-off we'd be willing to make. So the Galaxy A21s isn't a bad phone, it's just that there are better offerings for the same amount of cash. I mean, even Samsung has a better phone for the same price. Still, the Galaxy A21s gets you great battery life, nice looking hardware, and a decent all-around camera. But its sluggish performance has us leaning towards alternatives in this price range. I'm Ricky with GSM Arena, and thanks for watching. Take care.